You're listening to Real Life, No Filter, where raw emotions and real moments take center stage. No masks, no filters. Just honest stories about life, love, and everything in between. Get comfortable. We're about to begin. Michael walked unhurriedly along the park alley when his gaze fell upon a quiet bench by the fountain. Sitting down, he allowed himself to forget the hustle and bustle for a while, immersing himself in the calming beauty around him. Tall poplars, like giant sentinels, formed a living canopy over the path, through which golden sunbeams pierced, turning an ordinary day into a fairy tale. The air was filled with tranquility, disturbed only by the distant hum of the city. People passed by, each on their own business. Some hurried, others enjoyed a stroll. Young mothers smiled as they pushed strollers, their voices blending with children's laughter. Little ones darted about on scooters and bikes, adding liveliness to this idyllic scene. The park breathed life, offering a sense of serenity. This urban oasis suddenly reminded Michael of another place, hidden deep in his memory, the park of his childhood in a small town. There, under the watchful eye of his beloved grandmother, the brightest hours passed. They fed birds by the fountain together, had long conversations about everything under the sun, and every walk invariably ended with a delicious bun or ice cream. Grandmother Eleanor was not just a relative to him, but his closest friend, someone who understood him without words. Her passing, when Michael was already a student, left a deep wound, but now he could remember her with a light sadness. He often thought about how she would have reacted to his successes, regretting that he couldn't share the joy of his victories with her. After all, it was she who predicted his future, noticing his talent in early childhood. Grandmother was the first to see a future engineer in him, watching little Michael build astonishingly symmetrical structures from building blocks. She discovered his aptitude for mathematics long before school, proudly calling him a brilliant mind. His mother merely smiled, considering it blind love, but grandmother turned out to be right. Michael indeed became a talented mathematician, easily tackling problems inaccessible to others. Grandmother, herself a decent mathematician and former employee of an architectural firm, tutored him additionally, proud that her grandson took after her. The only thing she sighed about, looking at his competition certificates, was that his grandfather couldn't see his successes. His grandfather, a respected surgeon, died when Michael was just an infant. Grandmother often spoke about him, creating a vivid and beloved image in the boy's mind. But his father was completely absent from his life. As he grew older, Michael began to feel a sharp lack of a male presence, asking questions to which he received no answer for a long time. Both his mother and grandmother avoided the conversation, changing the subject or citing busyness. Finally, his mother gave in, recounting an unpleasant story of a fleeting acquaintance, promises, and his father's sudden disappearance upon learning of the pregnancy. He reappeared only once, saw her with a rounded belly, and vanished again without a trace. His mother sighed, admitting that his father never sought him out, although he knew where they lived. She didn't blame him, believing he was simply scared and ran away. This story, told by his mother, freed Michael from illusions and fantasies about a heroic father. He understood that his mother had been reckless and abandoned, but it was important for him to know the truth, however bitter it was. Until the age of 10, Michael lived with his grandmother, but then moved in with his mother for easier access to the Mathematics Lyceum. He no longer needed constant care, but still visited his childhood home every weekend. He missed his grandmother, his room, his old cat buddy, and the unique atmosphere that permeated the apartment where his earliest years were spent. At the new Lyceum, he found not only new knowledge, but also his first, strong, albeit unrequited, feeling. His chosen one was Victoria, a girl from a parallel class with whom he had physical education. Michael, who wasn't athletically gifted, suddenly loved these lessons because he could admire her. Tall, slender, graceful, with long hair the colour of melted chocolate, she captivated glances. He especially liked her high ponytail, which revealed her perfect features and huge, unrealistically turquoise eyes. Victoria was a true beauty and knew it well, surrounded by a crowd of admirers. She was friendly to everyone but kept her distance, which gave Michael, who lacked the courage and confidence of the popular boys, a tiny glimmer of hope. He wasn't among her obvious admirers, remaining in the shadows, but his talent within the Lyceum walls blossomed fully. Teachers praised him, gave him challenging tasks, and soon he became the one others turned to for help with homework. Word of his mathematical abilities spread beyond the classroom, and one day during a break, Victoria herself approached him. In an elegant black dress with a white collar, she looked stunning, and Michael was flustered by her proximity. With a radiant smile, she introduced herself and asked if he remembered her, although he couldn't think of anyone else. She came to him, talked to him. The situation seemed unreal, but incredibly pleasant. Victoria explained shyly that they had been assigned a difficult math test, and she hadn't understood anything. This grade was crucial, and a C for the quarter threatened trouble at home. She pleadingly asked him for help, and Michael, ready to move mountains for her, immediately agreed. The girl's turquoise eyes lit up with joy, and in a burst of gratitude, she hugged him, saying he was indeed cool, just like the girls in his class said. After that incident, they didn't become close friends, but Michael was no longer invisible to her. She noticed him in the corridors, greeted him warmly, and sometimes they exchanged glances during physical education. Rarely, but she herself would initiate conversation about something trivial. And although the words didn't carry much weight, for Michael, her attention itself was important. In 9th grade, Victoria started dating Mark, the captain of the football team, and Michael, seeing them together, experienced the unpleasant feeling of jealousy for the first time. His childhood feelings for Victoria didn't fade, but only grew stronger, transforming into something new and very powerful. Other girls, despite their interest, didn't interest him. All his thoughts were occupied by the unattainable Victoria. He was even happy when rumours circulated in the Lyceum that Mark had left Victoria for an older girl. And Victoria, as if in retaliation, almost immediately began dating a guy who was also older than her, who picked her up after school in his own car. The girls at the Lyceum envied Victoria, discussing her new boyfriend, the son of wealthy parents. They predicted a happy life for her, marriage at 18, no need for education, wealth, and travel. At that time, many dreamed of such a prince without thinking about the cost. Against the backdrop of this prince, Michael felt utterly worthless, just an ordinary guy without a car or rich parents. Then came graduation and university enrollment. Life spun him into a whirlwind of new events. At the first alumni reunion, 2 years after graduating from the Lyceum, he heard that his classmates' prophecies had come true. Victoria married her suitor right after turning 18 and didn't pursue higher education. They found her a secretary position at her father-in-law's firm. She earned huge money, drove her own car, lived in a luxurious apartment, and often vacationed abroad, embodying the collective dream. Former classmates vied to express admiration for her luck, sharing details of Victoria's story, as she herself couldn't attend the evening being on vacation in the Maldives. Photos of the happy couple on the beach, shown by one of her friends, looked like scenes from a Hollywood movie. Michael returned home in a sad mood, as he had come solely for Victoria, hoping to see her and perhaps talk. He had matured, become more confident, and perhaps would have dared to confess his feelings, thinking her relationship with the rich kid had ended. For some reason, he hoped Victoria was free and open to communication, but it turned out she was now a married lady with a completely different life, one she probably dreamed of. She was envied, and Michael understood he couldn't give her what she had now. Life spun him again. Studies, exams, competitions, projects. As a promising student, he was hired part-time at a large oil company, Spectrum Corp, which was impossible to get into from the street, but paid significantly above average. At first, the sums credited to his account even made his head spin, but he also had to work hard, combining studies and career. Michael did excellently, and his grandmother and mother were proud of him, predicting a great future. Then only his mother was proud, because his grandmother suddenly passed away. Michael fell into apathy, from which his beloved work and the thought that his grandmother wouldn't want to see him like that helped him emerge. She dreamed that he would live life to the fullest, rejoice, socialize, and develop. He thought he had forgotten Victoria, although memories of his first love remained forever. But the torment and worries about the impossibility of their union were gone. Michael even started dating Sarah, a girl from his university, and their relationship quickly became serious. Sweet, kind, smart, and open, she was interested in modern architecture and, as Michael felt, was truly in love with him. It was an amazingly pleasant feeling to know that you are loved so sincerely, although he himself didn't feel the dizzying passion for Sarah that he once had for Victoria. But he understood her very well. Her attention touched him, and her admiration was captivating. He liked taking care of Sarah, bringing a smile to her sweet face, and they agreed on all important issues, often understanding each other without words. This, Michael thought, was more than enough, and his school feelings for Victoria he considered merely teenage passions, as adults perceive the world differently. The young couple were in no hurry to marry, deciding to establish their careers and get on their feet first. No one doubted that they would marry sooner or later. It was a settled matter. Michael was the first to graduate from university and was immediately hired full-time at Spectrum Corp, with a salary that increased several times, although with an increase in the volume and complexity of tasks. Sarah received her diploma shortly after and was gladly taken into an architectural bureau on the recommendation of the rector. Sarah's eyes glowed with enthusiasm when she talked about her new job, and Michael understood her, feeling the same way. Sarah moved in with Michael to his own, already renovated apartment, and they began living like an ordinary family. They planned a wedding because they had been together for a long time, and everything was going according to plan, deciding to postpone having children for now. Sarah dreamed of a summer wedding, a light dress, and a photo shoot by the river, and Michael supported her in everything, although the details of the celebration interested him little. His thoughts were occupied by another major project. In February, when Sarah went to visit her parents in a neighboring city, Michael and his colleagues were celebrating a major success. They had managed to secure a significant sum from the company's economists for an important project. The tense negotiations were behind them, and they wanted to relax. They went to a bar in the city centre, which, according to his colleague Alex, was famous for its live music, delicious beer, and beautiful girls. The bar was almost full, but Alex, being a regular, found a cosy sofa in the corner. Over conversations and jokes, they made plans for the future, dreaming of how their idea would bring the company big money. And then Michael saw her, Victoria. His head spun, his pulse quickened, cold sweat broke out on his back, just like in his youth. She still had a huge influence over him, an adult and accomplished man. His feelings, it turned out, had not disappeared, had not changed. But Victoria, she had changed, but she still attracted him like a magnet. Victoria stood at the bar, talking to the waitress, and it was clear they had a good relationship. Her smile, her long hair the colour of milk chocolate, her turquoise eyes on her tanned face. Everything was the same, but now there was an elusive sadness or anxiety in them that Michael hadn't noticed in school. She was wearing an emerald dress and bulky winter sneakers, creating a semi-sporty but elegant look. Alex distracted him, noticing he was looking at the beauty, but immediately returned to his story. Michael didn't want to lose sight of Victoria and hurried after her when she moved to a corner of the hall, invisible from his spot. He saw her slip into a back room and decided to wait, sure she would come out. A meeting was inevitable, but what to say? How to start a conversation? He was nervous, running meaningless phrases through his head. Victoria emerged from the back room, but in a waitress uniform, a black t-shirt, jeans, a grey apron, and a name tag reading Victoria. Michael couldn't believe his eyes. Victoria, a waitress. How was this possible? She had married a rich man and was supposed to be living a high society life. The girl was about to walk past, but Michael called out to her. "Victoria, is that you?" She stopped, looked at him carefully, seemed flustered, but recognition flickered in her eyes. Then she smiled awkwardly and replied, "Well, yes, it's me. And you? Michael? Wow, look at you. How interesting you've become." Her embarrassment passed, and she smiled charmingly. "In school, you were kind of a typical nerd, tall, thin, unremarkable. Years are often kind to you men." Michael beamed at the compliment, feeling a surge of confidence. Victoria clearly showed interest. "And are you working here?" he asked. "As you can see," Victoria sighed, her smile fading. "Life is a strange thing, unpredictable. Who would have thought everything would turn out this way?" "Did something happen?" Michael asked. "Something happened. It's an ugly story, but everything happens for a reason. I always say that. How about you? How are you? What do you do?" Michael replied that he worked at Spectrum Corp, and Victoria confirmed she had heard about it, praising his intelligence and determination. She stood very close, saying pleasant words, and there was so much interest, admiration, warmth, and tenderness in her gaze. For some reason, Michael explained that they were celebrating a corporate event, gesturing towards the table. Victoria replied, "Well, that's great. How much longer do you plan to stay?" He shrugged and suggested they talk when there were fewer people, closer to the end of her shift. Victoria agreed, noting how nice it was to meet someone from childhood, calling school years the best time. All evening, Victoria was busy, rushing around with trays, smiling at tipsy customers, joking back at their jokes. They often met each other's eyes, and Michael felt his heart overflowing with tenderness. It was a silent dialogue with the girl who, it turned out, still meant a lot to him. Once, she hadn't noticed him, and now she herself suggested they chat after her shift. When Michael's colleagues started heading home, he went out to see them off to the taxi. Alex, slurring his words, wondered why he wasn't leaving. Michael replied that he would stay a little longer. Alex smiled conspiratorially, noting that the acquaintance, yes, the beauty with the tray, and reminded him that he had Sarah. Michael thought. Sarah. Kind. Smart. Loyal. It would be upsetting for her to know that her fiancé was staying at a bar for his first love. But he wasn't doing anything wrong. He just wanted to know why Victoria had become a waitress. Closer to closing time, there was almost no one left in the bar, and Victoria was able to sit down with Michael. She looked tired, but even more attractive because of it. Oh, it was a tough shift. She smiled. Michael offered to order her something, but Victoria refused, saying she would have to bring it herself, and she'd rather just sit. Her legs were aching. He said the waitress uniform suited her, but Victoria admitted she didn't want to wear it. Then why? Michael asked. Victoria sighed. Well, that's how fate turned out. You know I married Brandon right after school, right? Michael nodded. He had been told. Well, there you go. At first, everything was like a fairy tale. I couldn't even believe life could be like that. A huge apartment, a room straight out of a magazine picture, a loving, handsome, caring husband with an expensive car, gifts, a credit card with money, travel. Work. Brandon's father hired me as a secretary for a senior manager at his firm. All my work was answering calls, maybe making coffee. That's it. I sat in a beautiful office, read novels, played on my phone, painted my nails, chatted, changed outfits. It was beautiful. The salary was decent. People work around the clock for that kind of money. Michael asked about studying, but Victoria didn't think about it then. A different life had begun for her. Beautiful, bright, full, and it seemed it would always be that way. Time passed, and the always attentive Brandon began to change. He stayed late at work. Endless business trips began, from which he returned with a bronze tan. Victoria, engrossed in her new life, didn't notice this immediately, and when she realized something was wrong, she became scared. Only then did it dawn on her. Her happiness was fragile and completely dependent on Brandon, his decisions and plans. And Brandon, whose love seemed eternal, was drifting further away. Victoria tried to fix the situation. Luxurious lingerie, culinary delights, gifts, even talking about a child, although initially they hadn't planned to rush. Brandon met all her efforts with complete indifference. Only the conversation about a child angered him slightly. We're not ready yet. He cut her off. It's too early to think about kids. We haven't had enough fun ourselves. One day, Victoria looked through her husband's phone while he was in the bathroom. She stumbled upon a correspondence with Christina, Brandon's mistress. The messages were eloquent, interspersed with explicit photos and even videos. Victoria expected excuses, but Brandon merely shrugged, considering having a mistress a normal thing, like his father and his friends. In his world, men earn money and do what they want, and women endure everything. Victoria was even ready to put up with it for the sake of a beautiful life, but she felt threatened by Christina. She tried to talk to Brandon carefully, without offending him, but making it clear that his behavior was unacceptable. But the tactic didn't work. One day, a scandal erupted. Brandon called things by their names, reminded Victoria where he had taken her from and what she had gained from their marriage, explaining that everything has a price. Victoria felt worthless. She wasn't afraid of losing Brandon. She found him repulsive, but she was afraid of losing her new life. And so I resigned myself. Victoria sighed, looking at Michael. Sometimes I was disgusted with myself. But I lived with Brandon, pretending to be an exemplary wife and showing unearthly love when needed. Something like that. Victoria tolerated Brandon's endless infidelities and neglect, receiving unlimited money in return. Instead of saving for the future, she spent everything on entertainment: clothes, clubs, trips, perfume, anything that helped her distract herself and feel happy. But more and more often, Victoria felt longing and a chilling emptiness in her chest. Drinking helped her forget, but only for a short time. And then Brandon casually announced a divorce. Victoria felt as if she had been punched in the gut. She realized she would return to her parents' apartment. All the property was in Brandon's father's name. She would get nothing. Back to the Khrushchev-era apartment, a drinking father, a controlling mother, no profession, no savings. A banal story. "It's my own fault," Victoria sighed sadly again. She apologized for her frankness, saying she had just burst, tired of keeping everything inside. It was pleasant to talk to Michael, who had always been good, understanding, too wise for his years. The story turned out to be anecdotally banal. Brandon met a younger mistress. She got pregnant. And he, while the passion lasted, decided to get rid of his old wife. So Victoria returned home. She couldn't live with her parents, sold her belongings, pawned jewelry, enough for 6 months of renting an apartment. She went looking for work, as she had, of course, been fired from her father-in-law's firm. Without a diploma, the options were limited, and she managed to get a job as a waitress in a bar somehow. "I like it here," Victoria finally smiled. "The music is good, the people are fun. It's even cool." Michael looked at her with sympathy. "I'm so sorry," he said. "That's tough." Brandon played with a beautiful toy, found a new one, and just got rid of the old one. "It's terrible." "It's okay. At least we didn't manage to have kids with that Brandon. He always treated me condescendingly, kind of looking down on me. And back then, being young and stupid, I thought it was his care, his patronage, his love. Nothing of the sort. His new wife is unlikely to be happy with him. So I'm even glad I got rid of him." "Really?" Victoria looked into Michael's eyes. "Tell me about yourself. Do you have someone?" "No," Michael lied for some reason. "I don't have anyone. I'm free." He couldn't, looking at Victoria, tell her about Sarah. And anyway, Sarah seemed distant and completely foreign now. They sat at the table for a long time, reminiscing about the past, mutual acquaintances. Michael easily and naturally confessed his long-standing crush on Victoria. "It's a pity I didn't know that. That's exactly what I was looking for. Sincere feelings, love. But the guys who hung around me, well, you understand, they only wanted one thing. I thought it couldn't be any other way. Then they walked through the night city, not wanting to part." Michael put his arm around Victoria's shoulders. She leaned against him trustingly. She invited him to her rented apartment nearby, and Michael agreed. That's how they spent their first night together. In the morning, Michael felt truly happy because she was there, Victoria. An unprecedented surge of energy, a pleasant lightness in his soul. Not even thoughts of Sarah clouded this mood. He would talk to her. He would definitely talk to her. He would explain everything. Sarah was smart. She would understand. Dreams just had to come true. They had to. Otherwise, life loses meaning. They started dating. Michael did tell Victoria about Sarah, hiding nothing, wanting to be sincere with her. Victoria was clearly upset, tense. Distrust flickered in her eyes. "This has happened to me before," she said in a low voice. "There was a man in my life who promised he would divorce for me. He didn't. This is a completely different situation, and we're not even married." The conversation with Sarah was long and difficult. Michael sweated as if he had unloaded 3 train cars of coal. The usually calm and rational Sarah was hysterical, sobbing, begging Michael to reconsider, even cursing him and the hateful Victoria. Michael's heart ached, looking at his former fiancée. It seemed Sarah truly loved him. Later, Michael would learn from mutual acquaintances that it was so unbearable for Sarah that she tried to commit suicide. Fortunately, she was saved. She spent time in the hospital, worked with psychiatrists, and because of this impulsive act, lost her prestigious job. Michael felt guilty, but didn't know how to help. No one is obligated to sacrifice their happiness and dreams for another person, Victoria reassured him, having moved in with Michael immediately after his breakup with Sarah. They didn't want to be apart, wanting to be constantly together. Michael offered Sarah help through friends, but she proudly refused. She no longer wanted to hear about her former fiancé, considering his action despicable and a betrayal, although he hadn't deceived her, telling her everything right away. One way or another, things turned out wonderfully for Sarah. She recovered, found a job, got married, and had 2 wonderful sons close in age. Michael was happy for her, even tried to call, but realized it wasn't appropriate. Years passed since their breakup, and bright and joyful events happened in her life. Michael and Victoria also married. The initial passion subsided a bit. Things settled down. Michael was happy and thought things would only get better. Victoria quit her job, and Michael supported this decision, although he wouldn't have advised it himself. He didn't like his wife working nights in a bar, smiling at tipsy men. Perhaps he was even jealous. He could easily provide for their small family, and the house immediately became cozier. Now, when Michael returned from work, the rooms were always tidy and smelled of delicious food. Victoria was wonderful, beautiful, graceful, stunning, the very best. Michael forgave her little weaknesses, whims, demanding nature, complaints out of nowhere, even finding it charming. And anyway, beauties are allowed a little more, it's an axiom. And then something unforeseen happened. Spectrum Corp, where Michael had worked all these years, went bankrupt. It was a long and dark story. Competitors had done their part. Spectrum Corp was bought out by businessmen from the capital, divided, ruined, and people were laid off. Michael was suddenly jobless. No, he was quickly invited to a factory. A specialist of his level was known in the city, but the salary offered was 5 times less than it had been at Spectrum Corp. It was still a high salary by city standards, but they still had to tighten their belts. Victoria was used to spending large sums on herself. Fitness, spa, shopping, cosmetology, beautiful clothes, restaurants with girlfriends, trips to the sea. All this suddenly stopped. Michael himself was worried. But for Victoria, the decline in the quality of life was a tragedy. Moreover, it wasn't about temporary difficulties. Michael had no prospects in this city. Victoria tried to encourage her husband to start his own business, but he honestly replied that he had a different character, not the right mentality or drive. He was an excellent performer, but not a leader. Well, yes, you need backbone for that, like Brandon. Victoria shook her head in disappointment. It hurt Michael to be compared, and unfavorably at that. But he never once reminded her how and why her relationship with her ex-husband ended. Now Victoria fundamentally refused to do housework, even though she wasn't working. "I didn't sign up to be a free maid," she declared in the evenings. Michael sighed and went to the kitchen himself to cook dinner. He forgave Victoria these unfair reproaches. The main thing was to preserve their relationship. And then Victoria announced she was expecting a child. Michael was happy. deciding that the baby would bring them closer, but the future mother was clearly not thrilled and even considered terminating the pregnancy. Michael talked her out of it. The pregnancy was difficult. Victoria felt unwell, her back and stomach ached, her mood constantly changed. She blamed all her misfortunes on Michael, who, in her opinion, couldn't provide for the family, and that's why she was suffering so much. The man felt guilty, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't earn more. His salary was decent by city standards, but Victoria needed more. Michael thought that after the baby was born, Victoria would change, as pregnant women often have raging hormones. But no, Sophia was born, and Victoria fell into a prolonged apathy. Her daughter brought her no joy. The only feeling seemed to be irritation. Michael, coming home, often found a terrible scene: a crying daughter in her playpen, and Victoria in the next room messaging on social media. He tried to talk to her about raising their daughter, gently, so as not to offend her. "A child needs attention, warmth, care at this age," he said. "Are you suggesting I spoil her?" Victoria flared up. "Pick her up every time she whimpers? Coo at her non-stop, forgetting about myself?" Michael tried to object, but Victoria interrupted him, showering him with accusations, making him feel worthless. She screamed that she needed rest, that she had suffered for 9 months, given birth, and now was forced to sit with the child without help. "You can't send me to the sea for a week. We don't have money. You can't hire a nanny. You have no right to tell me anything at all. So just keep quiet." There was so much hatred and contempt in Victoria's voice and gaze that Michael was lost, not knowing how to comfort her. He felt utterly worthless, seeing that the person closest to him considered him a pathetic failure. He knew how sweet she could be when they had money, and he blamed himself for what was happening. Coming home, Michael readily took on household chores: cooking, cleaning, playing with his daughter. He even enjoyed it. Sophia missed her dad during the day, and order gradually settled in the house. He hired a nanny, since it was so hard for Victoria. But even then, she remained dissatisfied. She didn't get along with the first nanny. She had the audacity to point out Victoria's shortcomings in handling the child. The second was less talkative, and Victoria went shopping and to spas. Of course, she couldn't live life to the fullest as before, but Michael tried to ensure she always had money for entertainment. He understood that women on maternity leave needed to relax, but Victoria's behavior could hardly be called just relaxing. She lived some kind of separate life, coming home only to sleep, sometimes returning drunk in the morning. Michael worried, still loved her, and hoped it was a postpartum condition, although Sophia was already almost a year old. He saw how other mothers behaved, with what tenderness they looked at their little ones, how carefully they handled them, how they cooed with their children. Sophia knew none of this. Her mother was absolutely cold and indifferent to her, only touching her out of necessity, not playing, not singing, not reciting poems. Michael even tried to start a business, thinking that money would fix everything and Victoria would become her old self. But nothing worked out. He only lost his savings. He was already thinking about a family psychologist, feeling that the cat was out of the bag, and even found a specialist. But before he could talk to his wife, an event occurred that changed everything. One day, Michael stayed late at work and returned later than usual. Victoria was still not home. The nanny was with Sophia, a saintly woman who meekly endured the irregular schedule and Victoria's antics. It was Friday. She had probably gone to a club with friends again, long having stopped feeling the need to inform her husband. Michael let the nanny go and prepared dinner for himself. Sophia was sleeping soundly. Poor child. deprived of maternal love, and her perpetually busy father couldn't give her enough attention. The man constantly worried about this. Entering the bedroom, he immediately felt something was wrong. Victoria's things were significantly fewer. He rushed to the closet, to the dressing table. A lot was missing. The jewelry box with the gifts he had given her favorite brand-name dresses, small items. She had taken only the most valuable and beloved things. Her husband was clearly not on that list. A little later, in the kitchen cupboard, Michael found a note that explained everything. It turned out Victoria had met a businessman from Germany, Georg, on social media. Their correspondence quickly grew into something serious. Georg was captivated by Victoria's appearance, her sensuality, sincerity, tenderness. Victoria knew how to present herself. Michael sighed heavily, thinking, would Georg have looked at her if he had lost his fortune? Georg had even come to visit Victoria. They met, fell in love, made plans. In short, Victoria left for him. She filed for divorce, wrote a waiver of parental rights for her daughter, even had it officially notarized. The document lay under the note, written proof of what Michael had known for a long time. Sophia wasn't needed by her. Victoria couldn't bring herself to say everything to his face, so she did it this way. Michael felt the ground give way beneath him. He still loved Victoria, even this version of her, distant, cold, capricious, and hoped she would come to her senses, become her old self, and they would be happy. Michael had almost no doubt about this. But Victoria left. She abandoned him, left Sophia. She ran away to a new life, bright, prosperous, interesting, and pleasant. In the note, she asked him not to seek meetings, not even contact. Sophia? Do with her what you want. Raise her yourself, or give her to an orphanage. You also have the right to give her up and start a new life. This child was a big mistake. And our marriage, apparently, too. It seemed to me back then, when we met by chance in the bar. It just seemed that something was possible between us. It didn't work out. We are completely different, not suited for each other. But I still wish you personal happiness. Be happy, just like I am. The letter ended there. Michael couldn't believe that Victoria was truly like that. A real monster, cold and calculating. Give Sophia to an orphanage? He had no one closer than his daughter now. Before, it seemed there was also Victoria, that she would come to her senses, recover, become sweet and caring, loyal and understanding. After all, financial difficulties are a common thing, and they weren't that poor. Yes, they couldn't throw money around, but they had everything they needed and more. Michael reluctantly admitted, Victoria was with him only for the money. She was in a desperate situation and was looking for someone to pull her out of poverty, to support her. And such a person was found. Victoria was happy for a while, twisting the enamored Michael around her finger. When he lost his high-paying job, money became scarce, and she started looking for another option. And the child was no obstacle. Victoria, indeed, never showed up again. She lived in Germany. Michael saw photos on her page, tried to contact her, but was immediately blocked. Victoria wasn't interested in her daughter. Michael couldn't understand this at all. He thought that with time, her heart would ache for the little one. But no, it didn't happen. Michael submitted to fate only until it presented another sharp turn. Just a year later, Sophia was diagnosed with a rare blood disorder. Genetics debuted, as the professor explained. It would have happened sooner or later anyway. Sophia was only 4 years old then. Endless examinations began, continuous treatment. Michael initially thought he needed to get everything sorted out before school, find therapy, stabilize her condition. He thought that medicine was so advanced now that they simply couldn't fail to help his girl. Yes, she would have to take pills her whole life, but many people live like that. But Sophia's illness was rare and insidious. It literally spoiled her blood. The little one constantly felt tired and nauseous. The nanny, who was with Sophia almost around the clock, worried and even cried. Looking at this kind woman, Michael thought of Victoria. She didn't even know about her daughter's misfortune. And if she knew, would she help? The man, after so many years, tried to reach out to his ex-wife again. She didn't want to know about him. Georg had already married her. They had a young son, Sophia's half-brother. Judging by the photos, Victoria was a doting mother to this child. This gave him hope. Maybe now she understood the importance of a mother to a child. Maybe the news of her daughter's illness wouldn't leave her indifferent. Suddenly, she might help in some way, find a German professor, and Sophia would get better. But Victoria categorically refused to communicate with her ex-husband and know about her daughter. Michael still managed to tell her what had happened through one of Victoria's friends. She asked me to tell you to forget about her existence, as if she doesn't exist at all, as if she died, the friend relayed. After this conversation, Michael understood that he would have to rely only on himself. There was no more hope for Victoria. She had definitively erased her ex-husband and daughter from her life, and Michael continued the fight for his beloved Sophia's health alone. He had no one closer or dearer. Sophia grew up an absolute daddy's girl, looking at her father with eyes full of adoration, as if seeing an almighty demigod. Michael couldn't let her down. Sophia grew up a kind, smiling girl. Despite her illness, she tried to enjoy life. Michael never ceased to be amazed at the simple things that filled her with delight. A butterfly on a leaf, the dance of snowflakes, a creeping cat. Daddy, how beautiful, look. The little one pointed a finger at things that had previously evoked no feelings in him. And the man understood that his daughter was right. These were truly stunning sights. Michael tried to spend every free minute with his daughter. He liked listening to her thoughts and making plans for the future. Sophia dreamed of becoming an artist and traveling the world with exhibitions. Looking at her drawings, Michael saw obvious talent. He enrolled her in an art class for preschoolers, but she couldn't attend due to her illness, which drained her strength and made her susceptible to infections. But Michael found a way. He started inviting an art teacher to their home. The middle-aged woman immediately fell in love with Sophia, this radiant little one who emanated tenderness. Only, she wasn't getting better. Quite the opposite. With years, the illness progressed. The illness is rare, little studied, genetic. Genetics are complicated. An unlucky ticket, Michael heard from doctors. Everyone said the same thing. Only a few in the world study this ailment. The waiting lists are miles long. Treatment is expensive, requiring research. But some manage to achieve remission. For others, nothing helps. Michael knew all the professors dealing with his daughter's illness. There were few of them. In Russia, only two, Miller and Davis, both in Moscow. Getting to see them was impossible. Huge queues, expensive consultations, appointments booked a year in advance. He called almost every week, hearing the same answer. No appointments, call later. Hope was almost gone. He tried to contact foreign professors, but it was even more difficult there. Michael felt devastated and powerless. He looked at his daughter. Sophia was fading every day, becoming weaker, paler, shadows settling under her turquoise eyes. Watching this was unbearable. Michael secured a transfer to the Moscow Research Institute of Hematology for a supportive course. This didn't solve the problem, but bought him time. Michael fought for this time tooth and nail. He knew that even medical luminaries might not help, but he had to at least try. There were patients who recovered. There were chances. If only he could get through to the professors, reach them. He took leave from work. He would go to Moscow with his daughter himself, wouldn't leave it to the nanny. It was time to spend time with his child. If Sophia feels better, we'll go to the zoo, to Red Square. Great vacation. Sophia was admitted to the day hospital. Every day, Michael took his daughter to the clinic for procedures, then picked her up and took her back to the hotel. He hoped that after rehabilitation she would feel better. It had happened before. Sophia would get sick. They would take her to the hospital. Injections, IVs, transfusions, procedures. And she would revive for a while, even gain weight. Her cheeks would turn pink. She would become lively. That's what Michael was counting on. But this time, it didn't work. Sophia remained weak. She stopped drawing. It was hard for her to hold pencils. She lay in bed all day. What zoo? Michael asked the doctors questions. They shrugged. The illness was taking its toll. It happens. Supportive therapy is not radical. Experiments are needed. An individual approach, targeted help. Everything came down to the fact that the girl needed to see Davis or Miller. Michael tried to get his daughter admitted to the round-the-clock hospital. Her condition was worsening. The unhappy father feared that something terrible would happen, and he would be alone. No beds, the doctors replied. No urgent indications. Condition is stable and expected. Emergency help is not needed. Michael understood. Sophia was fading. If he didn't arrange something with a professor now, in Moscow, if he took his daughter home, nothing would help. The thought made him feel hot. He decided he wouldn't leave. He would lie in wait for the doctors, ambush them after work, sneak into the operating room, force them to admit Sophia. Let him serve time later, but he would get what he wanted. The desperate father was ready for anything. And now, Michael was sitting on the bench in the park for this very reason. Opposite, across the road, was the hospital where Miller worked. Davis had been sent to a conference. Only Miller remained, and the workload had increased. Michael knew what he looked like. Middle-aged, dark hair, brown eyes, sharp cheekbones, straight nose, strong chin. Michael had been staking him out for days, waiting until Sophia fell asleep, and then going to his post. He couldn't be away for long. He didn't want to leave his daughter alone. While the little one slept, he could keep watch. He hadn't managed to catch Miller. The plan was unsuccessful. He needed to get into the hospital, find the doctor, force him. First beg, then threaten. Ready for anything. Anxious thoughts swirled in his head. In his soul, anger, hatred, envy towards parents of healthy children. He didn't like these feelings. He considered himself a good person. His grandmother had raised him. But he was ready for something terrible. A crime. All for Sophia. If necessary, he would take a relative of Miller's. The consequences were terrible. But Sophia would live, if he was lucky. Why are you so sad? A clear little voice distracted him from his grim thoughts. Michael turned around. A thin boy of about 7 was sitting next to him, a little older than Sophia. Big blue eyes, a turned-up, freckled nose, a curious gaze. He needed a haircut. His long hair stuck out. His clothes were old, worn, but his sweater was neatly darned. Clearly, his parents were caring but poor. His sneakers were worn out and dusty. Why are you so sad? the boy asked again. Me? No, I'm not sad. Just thinking. No, I can see. Don't worry. Everything is fine. It often happens. First it's bad, bad, and then everything gets better. Sooner or later. You're right. Michael smiled. It was impossible not to smile into those clear blue eyes. The boy was sincere, bright, real. He radiated a special energy, an amazing child. And why are you walking alone here? Where are your parents? Michael looked around. The boy was too young to be walking alone. Careless. He sat down next to a stranger, started a conversation. Alone. Grandma is sick today, and I came here to see my friend. He waits for me every day. I help him, and he helps me. It seems you and he are true friends. Michael smiled. Keep in touch. That kind of friendship is very rare. I know. The boy smiled. He was missing 2 front teeth. His smile was funny and touching. A wonderful kid. He talked easily, naturally. It bothered Michael that such a young child was walking alone. Grandma is sick, and your parents are working? Is that why you're alone? Does Grandma know where you are? She knows, yes. Don't worry, I'm big now. I understand everything. I know how to cross the road, and I avoid bad people. Michael, I'm a stranger to you. You don't know me. And you're talking to me like this. You're good, the little boy stated with childlike spontaneity. It's obvious right away. Tears welled up in Michael's eyes. A trusting, sweet child. Calling him good, not knowing about his dark thoughts. He was ready for a crime. And the boy thought he was good. Anyone could deceive him like this, a defenseless, trusting little one. Still, it's better not to talk to strangers. People, you know, are all different. Parents told me. They didn't tell me. The boy shook his head. I don't even know them. I don't remember my parents. Grandma is raising me. My parents died when I was very small. They were in a car accident, and that was it. I was in the car too, but I survived and wasn't even hurt. Grandma said angels saved me because I still have to grow up and make this world better. That's quite a story you have, Michael said. He looked at the boy with different eyes. He must be sad, but he was so open, kind, sociable. He was going to save the world. My name is Matthew, by the way. The young interlocutor introduced himself. And yours is Michael, Uncle Michael. A woman with a cart rolled past. Buns, sweet buns, hot from the oven. It didn't escape Michael's notice how Matthew followed the cart with his gaze. And then it struck him. The child was from a poor family. He must be hungry. Matthew, did you have breakfast today? My friend treated me to a sandwich, but that was a long time ago. The boy was clearly hungry but embarrassed to ask. Michael got up and bought 2 fluffy raisin buns. He handed one to Matthew, who immediately devoured it like a hungry wolf cub. It was a pleasure to watch him eat with such appetite, especially after Michael had tried unsuccessfully to feed Sophia. She ate almost nothing. Is the second bun for you? Matthew asked. Why aren't you eating? It's very tasty. No, it's for my daughter, Michael replied. He thought maybe Sophia would want to try the fragrant pastry. He would be happy if she managed even a quarter. You have a daughter? What's her name? How old is she? Sophia. She just turned 6. Why didn't you bring her to the park with you? The weather is nice. We could have walked and run around. You see, Matthew, Sophia is sick. She has a fever. A naive little one. He didn't know there were worse illnesses. No, it's much more serious. If it were just a fever, it's related to her blood, Something hematological. Michael stared at the little one. How did he know such words? The phrase didn't fit the appearance of a freckled, toothless, tousle-haired first grader. Wow! Where did you get such knowledge? My friend knows a lot about illnesses. He tells me sometimes, Matthew explained. You know, your daughter needs fresh air and good emotions then. I agree. Michael sighed. Matthew surprised him more and more. But Sophia is too weak. It's hard for her to walk. Then how about I come to your place? Do you live far? I want to become a doctor when I grow up, you know. I can already treat a little. It always helps Grandma when I put my hand on her forehead. She says she feels better right away. And Grandma won't mind if you go visit strangers? She won't, the little one assured him. She knows I can tell people apart and avoid bad ones from a mile away. On the one hand, this amazing kid was right. Sophia needed positive emotions. Michael didn't know how to cheer his daughter up. She was indifferent to toys, watched cartoons without interest, didn't eat sweets. She lacked interaction with children. She dreamed of going to kindergarten, playing on the playground. But she was too weak. And here was Matthew with such a suggestion. It was strange that he was going to go to a hotel with a stranger's child, risking punishment. Although he wasn't going to do anything bad to Matthew, quite the opposite. Still, he decided to take the risk. Matthew was radiant, open, sensitive. If he could cheer Sophia up even a little, the risk would be worth it. When they entered the room, Sophia wasn't sleeping. She was lying there, staring blankly at the ceiling. Seeing the unfamiliar boy her father had brought, she brightened up, her eyes lit up with interest. "Who is that?" she asked, propping herself up. "I'm Matthew." The guest stepped forward. "Your dad and I became friends. I came to visit you." "And I'm Sophia." "I know. Uncle Michael told me. I know you're sick." "Yes." The girl nodded sadly. "Well, don't worry. Doctors are good now. They cure everything. You know, when I grow up, I want to become a doctor too." "And I'm an artist. Do you draw well?" Sophia replied proudly. Michael was pleased to hear that tone. Previously indifferent, she was now actively engaged in the conversation. "Dad, get my folder." Matthew climbed onto the blanket next to Sophia. She sat up and began showing him her masterpieces. Matthew looked at the drawings with interest. Sophia narrated the stories. They were clearly having a good time together. Michael smiled, looking at his animated daughter, and went into the other room. Maybe, seeing Matthew, Sophia will eat well too? Children's laughter occasionally drifted from the room. It was surprising. Sophia rarely smiled lately. Surprising and wonderful. Then Michael walked Matthew home. An old 5-story building behind the park, not far from the hotel. Sophia had fallen asleep by the time the guest left. The illness drained her strength. "Sophia is very, very sick," Matthew said sadly on the way. "I'll ask my friend how to cure her. He'll help. He's so smart, you know." Michael just smiled. A naive little one. Probably thinks an older boy who reads books is a genius. It was funny, but also sad. It was a pity that Matthew was mistaken. Michael wished the child's words were true. "Can I come again tomorrow?" "Come." Michael smiled. "At the same time. Not earlier. Sophia will be at the hospital." "Okay, I'll definitely come. You'll help me a lot if you sit with her while I run errands." Michael realized that while Matthew was with them, he could go to Miller's house. Maybe he could catch him, talk to him, convince him. "I'll definitely sit with Sophia. She's such a good girl, not like that show-off Molly from the yard. Sophia really draws very beautifully." The next day, Matthew kept his promise. He knocked exactly at the appointed hour. Sophia was waiting for him, having prepared a board game. Michael greeted Matthew and headed to Miller's house in a prestigious neighborhood. He took a waiting position. He couldn't wait long. He couldn't keep Matthew until night. His grandmother must have been worried. Sophia was asleep again when Michael returned. He noted that she was even paler. "She's worse." Matthew raised his eyes to Michael, eyes full of despair. "Can I come with my friend tomorrow? He will definitely help her. He is the smartest and kindest person in the world." Of course, of course. Come with your friend," the distressed Michael allowed. "The more people, the merrier. Sophia will be happy to see your friend." "You too," Matthew promised. "You'll be happy to see him too, you'll see." During the night, Sophia got worse. Her temperature rose, and she started shivering. Michael managed to stop the attack by calling an ambulance, but the doctors said that supportive measures, just a little more, and they wouldn't be able to cope with the attacks. Sophia was sleeping, and he held her thin little hand, stroked her fingers, and thought about where to find Miller. He could go to the hospital, threaten him, but there was security, staff. They would kick him out, call the police. No, he had to ambush him somewhere else. The next day began as usual. Michael woke his daughter, tried to feed her porridge. Sophia managed a couple of spoons. Michael called a taxi, carried his daughter out in his arms. At the clinic, Sophia was taken on a gurney for procedures. Michael sat in the lobby for several hours, scrolling through news, looking out the window, talking to mothers of other patients. Mostly mothers, attentive, caring. Michael thought he didn't measure up to their level. Women were better at handling young children. It was a pity his girl was deprived of maternal warmth. Later, Sophia, despite her fatigue, asked, "Is Matthew coming soon?" The boy was late. Michael thought he wouldn't come. Maybe his grandmother didn't let him. Did he get carried away playing? He was sociable, had many friends. But the long-awaited knock on the door sounded. Was it just Matthew, or with a friend? At the threshold, Matthew was smiling broadly, and behind him, an adult man was shifting from foot to foot. And not just a man. Black eyes, a strong chin, chiseled cheekbones. It was Miller. Michael barely stayed on his feet. What was happening? How was this possible? "Hi, Uncle Michael," Matthew said. "Meet my friend, Uncle Andrew. Remember, you said I could bring him? He'll help Sophia." A year and a half had passed since that amazing day. Michael was back in Moscow, in the same park, by the same bench. It was spring outside, mid-April. Lush greenery, clear sky, warm sun. Michael sat on the bench, looking fondly at Matthew and Sophia. The children had drawn hopscotch on the asphalt and were jumping. Both had grown, matured. Matthew was almost a teenager. The same open gaze, the charming, no longer gap-toothed smile. He had grown taller, stronger. It was good that he hadn't lost his spontaneity, his openness. He would probably remain like this, kind, attentive, sensitive. Sophia was 7. Michael hadn't hoped a year and a half ago that she would go to a regular school. At best. Homeschooling, at worst. It was hard to think about even now. "You beat me again!" Matthew's voice was full of admiration. Sophia smiled proudly. Michael chuckled. He saw everything. Matthew always let Sophia win so she would feel strong, agile. The boy knew. She needed positive emotions, faith in herself. He tried. He acted as if he was 10 years older than Sophia, a little sage. On that memorable day, Michael couldn't believe for a long time that Matthew's friend turned out to be Professor Miller himself. The boy had mentioned that his friend understood medicine, but he hadn't said it was one of the two most famous professors. Miller turned out to be a wonderful person. Michael told him about his trouble. While the men talked, the children played a board game. Miller was horrified by how difficult it was for people to get an appointment with him. He hadn't known the situation. He immediately decided to create a website for direct booking. After a thorough examination, the professor developed a treatment plan. It was expensive, but Miller personally secured state subsidies, and the little one began to recover. They didn't manage to completely get rid of the illness. Sophia would take medication her whole life. But she was no different from healthy children. She became quick, noisy, energetic, even started being mischievous, which especially delighted Michael. It meant his daughter had enough strength for childish antics. And that was happiness. Sophia went to school at the appointed time. To two, a regular school and an art school. Every year she travelled to Moscow for rehabilitation and examination. Both daughter and father were happy about this circumstance. After all, Matthew lived in Moscow, the amazing boy who played a key role in Sophia's fate. He also eagerly awaited their arrival. How did Matthew know Miller? How did the professor and the boy from a poor family become friends? Matthew met Andrew at the hospital where his grandmother was taken with a heart attack. The little one was worried, crying. Miller helped him calm down, talked to him, gave him water. His grandmother laughed and cried. When the danger passed, Miller delivered the good news. By that time, the boy and the man had become friends in an incredible way. Matthew had managed to say he wanted to become a doctor. More topics for conversation appeared. Miller was touched by the fate of the radiant little boy. He didn't want him to end up in an orphanage while his grandmother was sick and took him in. His wife gladly welcomed the guest. They had a son the same age, and the boys got along. So Matthew had been visiting his friend, Uncle Andrew, at the hospital ever since. Despite being busy, he spent time with the boy, participated in his life, understanding that the elderly woman had a hard time coping alone. When Matthew, wiping away tears, told Miller about Sophia, he couldn't remain indifferent, especially since it was about the illness the professor specialized in. Michael and Miller were now on friendly terms. Andrew personally monitored reports on Sophia's condition. Most often, of course, they talked about Matthew. The boy's fate was important to both of them. "He's a wonderful kid," Michael said. "I wish I had a son like that." "Intelligent, and most importantly, sensitive," Miller agreed. "The most necessary combination for a future doctor. He will become a doctor who saves more than one life."